And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. We will have the latest reaction. You just heard Maggie O'Mara talking about the stabbing and what happened in Boise. Also, an officer involved in a shooting in Meridian. I wish we had better news to start the day with, but we will talk with you, take your calls, and find out about the 9 stabbed at the Boise apartment complex. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But we always want to keep you up to date on issues of importance. Over the weekend, it was the Republican Party's big annual convention in Pocatello, and a lot of things went on, a lot of coverage. Joining us now, the former chairman of the Idaho Republican Party and just all-around great guy, Steve Yates, joining us. Mr. Chairman, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
So the state convention happened. You've run those, many times. The party seems to be unified. You have the fond farewell of Congressman Labrador. You have Lieutenant Governor Little as the party's standard bearer, who hopes to succeed Governor Otter. What happens in these conventions? Does anything really big happen, or do we just hear about the bad news?
Well, of course, there is occasion that the little nitpicking gets headlines every once in a while at these gatherings. But the big picture is that the party meets every 2 years during the election cycle in order to try to build momentum, build some fundraising, but also just build up energy, training, and other kinds of assets to go into the general election to support legislative nominees, the constitutional officers, and when they're on the ballot, the congressional nominees as well. So in 2016, we had a heavy flavor of the presidential election. This one, because it's a midterm election, much more focused on the state races, and that is, of course, appropriate.
And the Democrats having their primary or their meetings in Caldwell, really, numbers-wise, there isn't much they can do, is there?
Well, the odds are stacked heavily against them in terms of voter registrations for statewide offices. We do have a sizable number of unaffiliated voters in Idaho, and when you look at turnout models, in recent cycles, the turnout statistics have helped our Republican candidates. In 16, we went up from 80 to 84% in the legislature, and we were able to hold all of the statewide offices. That's a pretty high bar, and it's going to take a lot of work this cycle. And I hope that all those that attended the convention were keyed in to the task at hand and ready to do the hard work. My time in chairman told me that the 4-letter word that mattered most in all of this is WORK. So we've got to commit to that.
Well, and that is tough. You had Congressman Labrador saying 63% of the party didn't vote for the nominee. There still appears to be some hard feelings, or is there?
Well, I know from some experience that when you go through an election cycle and you don't end up the nominee, it can leave a little bit of a mark, but we pick up and we move forward. It's just a mathematical fact that the system that Idaho Republicans have chosen for the statewide nominations, that you can end up with plurality nominees. And I do think it would be a constructive conversation to have going forward about whether, as a party, we want to have a runoff among the top 2 in these kinds of contests. It's a legitimate question. Many other states have them. We don't. That's okay. It's our choice. But it does leave a situation, if you don't have a runoff, where people can say this, and it's true, that a majority of those who participated in the primary didn't vote for the nominee. Now, there's many examples of nominees that come through that kind of situation and ended up being a well-received leader within their jurisdiction. Case in point would be Congressman Raul Labrador, coming out of what would be called a jungle primary when he first ran, and ended up being a pretty solidly supported member of Congress from the 1st Congressional District.
Indeed. Of course, Russ Fulcher will try and carry that standard bearer. What about you? Are you supporting the nominee for lieutenant governor?
I support all of the nominees when they go through this cycle. Now, since I have spent the last 4 years in politics, volunteering a great deal of my time, I'll, of course, do what I can through this cycle, but I have some things to tend to in my family and my work. And so I'll go about parts of real life, since the voters have chosen to give me a healthier dose of real life over the next few months. and that's okay. We're doing well that way, and I also don't want to overshadow or interfere with what the party's current leadership has in mind to do for their own plans this cycle. We had a very aggressive and comprehensive plan in 2016 that we put forward, and I don't really want to step into the fray in a way that tries to compare this cycle with that cycle in a way that's not helpful.
Steve Yates joining us here, our great friend, former candidate for lieutenant governor, former chairman of the Idaho State Republican Party. What's in your future?
Well, I am very, very grateful for the people that helped and supported when I was chairman and when I was running for lieutenant governor, and felt blessed to have support from a lot of people around different parts of the state. I'll remain engaged and try to show up to help individual candidates and central committees where I can be of value added. I also look forward to some parts of the summer to taking my wife and son to the parts of Idaho that I was traveling to in those capacities, and they weren't able to see some of the beauty of our state. So we'll get around the state during the summer and through some of the general, but it's back to real life. I've got kids at the ages in life where they need a little extra attention, and they're doing some exciting things. And I've got a daughter that's up and out from the house and trying to move on in life and doing a verb that wasn't a verb when we were kids, and they call it adulting. We just were told to, get on with your life and go take care of yourself. And so we're going through these transitions, and it's a beautiful thing to do.
Indeed. Our great friend Steve Yates joining us. Let's talk a little bit about your other area of expertise among many, and that's international relations, international politics. How's the president doing? We heard that North Korea, no new news here. They're revving up their nuclear facilities, and Chuck Todd is scared.
Yeah, well, this is very, very predictable, and it's happened every single time there's been an agreement with North Korea. And, of course, I think we've talked about it before. I think President Trump has been in a stronger position than his predecessors in that the United States, in this instance, has not given up anything or given anything that can't be taken back. And so we haven't done anything that's irreversible. There's been much commentary about the atmosphere and whether we gave Kim Jong-un too much of a platform in Singapore. I think the president pushed all the buttons that could be pushed, and even some that were creative that haven't been tried before, like the video that was done in a way that I think was uniquely at the North Korean level of communication. And so I think that we're in as good of a place as we're going to be with an intractable problem area of the world. I'm optimistic that we'll make some progress, but it's coming from a very low base. John Bolton is the national security advisor to the president right now. I can't think of a more knowledgeable person when it comes to verification and counterproliferation. And he knows how hard it is to really get verified progress in these areas and keeping the president apprised. So, I was just in D.C. recently, and the team of people was still very actively traveling and engaging diplomatic partners, and military was working on what adjustments it needed to make. So I think it's very early stages of fleshing out this outline of what they agreed in principle to in Singapore.
Steve Yates joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Anything else we should be looking out for?
Well, I think that this week we just celebrate the independence of our nation and the values that really has blessed all of us with. So to me, we've got all these things happening in the world. We've got people with sharp elbows and sometimes sharp words in our politics. This is a good time for everyone to step back and be grateful for the red, white, and blue. So I hope everyone is safe, enjoys the fireworks, and loves our country. That's ultimately what the president has urged us to do, and that's a very positive thing.
It's interesting. You contrast that between the demonstrations over the weekend, one particularly here in Boise where people want to get rid of ICE. They want to get rid of the immigration and customs enforcement. It's just odd that we have these attacks on law enforcement, and it just seems to be very misguided. Your thoughts on these protests over the weekend?
Oh, I agree completely. I think that their anger and fear, to the extent it's a genuine fear, I strongly suspect a lot of this stuff gets whipped up and people kind of plug into the same social media and media outlets, and it's just taken them to a place of departure from the senses. Countries have borders. Nations have laws. We have compassion for the people who try to come the right way. We try to have compassion in general in all that we do. But we also have to have order and security, predictability. But ultimately, this is the most humane, positive nation ever to be given birth to this planet. I mean, more people have been risen out of poverty. More people have been risen out of slavery. More people have been risen up out of despair because of the values and virtues and hard work of this country than any other country on the planet. And so if you got a problem here, that's fine. We've got plenty of problems to deal with. But for those of us that have lived in lots of other parts of the world, just never forget, as bad as we can be on any given day, it's much better to have been born here, live here, work here, raise a family here than any other place on the planet. And that's what we should celebrate this week.
All right, Steve Yates in rare form. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you soon, and safe travels. And thank you for waking up so early with us to start your day. I know you've got a life, but we appreciate you.
Anytime, Kevin. God bless.
God bless our great friend Steve Yates joining us. Talk a little bit about the Republican Party. And this is this is going to be a challenging show this morning. And unlike our colleagues in the other media, you have people with their emotion, and I hope that the emotion is genuine. But here, you take a look at what happened, this horrific stabbing. You've got the family of the victims speaking out. You've got national news. You've got Tanya J. Powers, who will be covering it from Fox News. She'll be covering it for us at 6:30. It's that big of a story. This was the lead on Good Morning America. And you have our friend Chief Bones holding a press conference, Mayor Beater. And over the weekend, I was in touch with the broadcast executives, and they said, hey, should you come in? Should we do this? And I thought to myself, I think the community needs some time to digest this, if you can at all. And, here you have the story of this black man from California who has come in to the Treasure Valley from California. And, again, we have fun with the folks from California. But there's a reason why people from California and other places have fled to the Treasure Valley. And now, as I've warned for years, as we all have warned for years, there's an unsavory element, an unsavory group of predators that are looking to attack people. I mean, the most innocent of all of us, children. And it shows you just how powerful this evil is. And then you have what happened in Meridian, Idaho, where you have police officers involved in a shooting. Again, welcome to Los Angeles, everyone. An officer was shot Sunday afternoon in a shootout with a suspect in a Boise neighborhood and is in good condition after surgery. Thank God for that. And we're going to get into this, and this is going to be a challenge. And our great friend Ray Amaya has us geared to go with sound, but this is more nonpartisan. And we're going to try and bring it all together in this form. On Saturday, we had people in downtown Boise demanding that we get rid of ICE, we get rid of law enforcement, we get rid of everything, right? Everybody should come into this country. It's those institutions, ICE, local police, law enforcement, that keep us safe. And I don't know if it was the same people, but I'm going to assume. And you know what happens when you assume. But, a couple years ago, people were ripping the police. And it's never the protesters that rush into the apartments to take down this horrible individual, this criminal, this man from California, this 30-year-old black man from California. And, Kevin, you're saying, why are you mentioning race? Well, look, I think race is important. And you have an issue here where you have a man who targeted these people. Maybe because they were refugees, I don't know. My point being that if it were somebody else, maybe a white guy, we would be talking hate crime legislation. The key here is there should be no hate crime based on, one crime over another. And I'm going to struggle with this morning. And I hope you join me at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You have people denouncing this, but with all due respect to the people that are denouncing this and saying this is pure evil, this is what's happening here. And it happens everywhere. And as I said before, and we'll get into this more at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, this is why we need to support law enforcement. And I hope those folks in Meridian are okay. And we'll talk about that. The male suspect was killed after a confrontation near Maple Grove and Overland Roads. The incident occurred in the area of the Mediterranean Drive and Crimson Rose Avenue. Two suspects, a male and a female, fled after the shooting. The second suspect turned himself in. The other suspects have not been released. They dumped a Durango at Sud City Car Wash at Maple Grove and Overland and fled in a gold SUV. Now, again, welcome to Los Angeles. And we have elements here that don't deserve a welcome. And we will take your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. How safe, how secure do you feel?
Some of the victims will be forever scarred by the medical injuries that they received. They received life-changing injuries. This was an attack against those who are most vulnerable, our children. It's untenable, unconscionable, and is pure evil in my mind.
There we have it. Chief Bones calling it pure evil. He would be correct. But we have more of that. And without the good people and their families of law enforcement to keep us safe, we're all going to be victims. Now, some people choose not to be victims and choose to conceal and carry. That has been vilified by the press, that has been vilified by the more progressive folks. Oh, Kevin, it's too soon to make this political. No, it isn't. How safe do you feel? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Go ahead! Just love! Go ahead! Just love! Go ahead! Just love! Go ahead! Just love!
A group gathered yesterday at the apartment where the stabbing took place to show support for the refugee community and to demand safety and security. Boise police have said at this time there is no evidence to suggest that this was a hate crime, but they continue to investigate potential leads. Still, this weekend's events have rekindled fears that refugees in this group demonstrating say they feel in our community.
The community here is amazing, but the people, some of them are not accepting, and some of them want hate and want violence. We want justice and we want peace. We want peace for the people. We want to go out in the evening. We want to be normal. We want to act. We want to feel as though we're normal, that we belong here.
Duha Abdel Hussein said the group wants to ensure justice for the victims and safety for all refugees.
See, I don't understand that. This is the most accepting community on God's green earth. On the other hand, you have to have refugees that are properly vetted. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to the phones. And we go to Jonathan in Boise. Jonathan, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Morning, Kevin. I guess my question, as soon as this happened, was for our great mayor of this town. We've seen what's happened in these communities overseas. I know that they're the victims of this, but is this going to be, quote unquote, part and parcel of living in the city now? Or is our mayor going to get ahead of this? Because it tends to be that there tends to be a certain type of activities that happen in these towns that a lot of people are trying to get away from. And if they start bringing in, not to say the refugees are responsible for this, but the communities that they're putting them in are definitely, everyone knows this apartment complex. Everyone around here knows that part of town. It's sad what happened to these children, but no one is surprised that something happened in that part of town. And I'm just curious why everyone of our mayor and our city council is okay with that.
Well, Jonathan, we shall see, shall we? I'm
hoping we don't see any more of that, but I'm hoping he comes out with stronger statements than just his prayers. I hope they get together and actually get a plan going.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. And in fact, you heard the clip there. You have people saying that, trying to stifle dissent, where you have the young lady obviously upset, saying that some people here don't want us here. Well, I think people want people that are assimilated here, that are here legally, but, you don't want to have open borders. But, again, you hear the news media, this isn't a hate crime. It was a African-American from Los Angeles. It wasn't a white guy from Pocatello. There, I said it.
Yeah.
There, I said it.
I think
that's what the media was looking for.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jonathan, that's what the media was looking for, so they could condemn all the people of Idaho.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I just, growing up, I've lived in many different states, and there's just certain parts of towns that people want to ignore and not. We have no problem with the refugees being here, but you can't just put people in a low-income housing area and just turn your blind eye to what may be happening in those areas. That's where crime tends to happen. That's where people who commit crimes tend to gravitate towards.
Yep.
And if we're going to have people come in, the mayor needs to do a better job of making sure that they're watching those areas and not having these things happen.
You're right. Jonathan, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio.
Evans, Eric Everett.
And Larry, thank you very much. Let's go to Tanya J. Powers in New York to cover this story. Just down the road from us, the Wiley Street Apartments on State Street, but it has made national news. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, it has. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of affiliates that want to talk about this today because it's just such a shocking headline. I mean, anytime you have, stabbing attack and 3-year-old's birthday party in the same headline, it's hard to get your head around.
It is indeed. Of course, what is the reaction from people that you've talked to?
Just shock and horror. Mainly the question of why. Why in the world would somebody, do this at a children's birthday party? That seems to be the big question that everybody keeps asking in light of all of this. It's stunning. I mean, I know the guys behind bars now, Timmy Kenner, and as you mentioned, this, is right down the road from you.
Yeah, you have the satellite trucks and everything out there. You've had the reaction of the city, the police department. Thanks to Ray Amaya, we'll be talking to Chief Bones coming up. Sometimes you really can't explain things. People just do bad things, and I'm sorry if that seems like an oversimplification, but you have Mr. Kenner coming in from California, had trouble in the past in the state of Utah and other places, so he's had a history of violence. I don't know if that lends any credence to why this happened. He was asked to leave these apartments on Friday and then came back to commit those crimes allegedly.
Let me ask you, since I feel like I should interview you instead of the other way around today because you're actually there. Have any of the local reports, because all of these stories, local journalism, local reporters, local newspapers absolutely beat everybody else hands down because they're there in the community and they're the ones who know everybody and what's going on. Have there been any other reports about what happened to make him? What was his behavior that made the people tell him he had to leave the apartment and sort of kicked him out on Friday?
As of right now, no. That's okay. Right now in Ada County, and we don't know a lot. I guess we can just go back to his violent past, and you have the community coming together. It's interesting, and I don't know if the national media will make a point of it, but the refugee situation has been, as it has been in other places, a controversial situation. You've got the mayor of the city of Boise declaring the city a welcoming city, Boise more progressive or at least more left than the rest of Idaho. And, they were very upset when President Trump shut down the refugee program. There's a big refugee community here. In fact, a week ago Saturday, it was World Refugee Day, and you had a lot of folks come in. And just to kind of help you with this story, people in Idaho are very welcoming. It's kind of like you expect people in North Carolina. They're just very open and very friendly. And I know sometimes the national perspective, whether it's what happened in northern Idaho with the white supremacists, tends to carry. But in my 9 years here, I found the people here to be the friendliest in the country. And whether you are culturally affluent with someone or not, people get along here. So that this happened is a shock. And then you have quite a lot of people coming in from California in the neighboring community. In Meridian, you had an officer shootout. Usually here, Tanya, this is the toughest place for me to be a talk show host because the lead story is a new stoplight, and I'm not kidding, as opposed to shootings. So this is a big turn for us here.
Yeah, and when I saw that this included the headline that it happened there, I was immediately even more shocked than I was from reading the headline because and I'm glad you made a point about the welcoming nature of people there because that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. The fact that this guy was not a refugee, I think, is one of the things that's being highlighted here. This was not someone who has come in from another country, like you said. He came in from California, which actually that's something that a lot of the news reports didn't include to start with. So I'm glad you said that. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a reporter there on the ground covering this from a local standpoint.
Well, you've covered some tough ones. So, you've had the chief calling this pure evil, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing your interview with Police Chief Bones. Is that going to be online later?
Actually, yes. In fact, I can put you on hold, and Ray and I can hook you up with that, if you don't mind. Okay. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you, Kevin.
Our great friend, Tanya J. Powers. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Should we break for news and then get ready for Joe Parrish? Roger that. Good morning, Maggie. Out to Joe Parrish, Channel 7, with the very latest. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, still a really eerie scene here this morning off of State Street in Boise. The community, the refugee community, still recovering after that brutal attack on Saturday night. If you did miss it this weekend, 9 people stabbed at the Wiley Street Station Apartments about 9 o'clock on Saturday. We learned yesterday during a news conference with Boise Police Chief Phil Bones that a man who had been reportedly staying here for a short time was kicked out on Friday. He came back on Saturday to exact revenge. That's how the chief put it on Sunday. We have learned that of the 9 people that were stabbed here on Saturday, a lot of them children, including a 3-year-old girl who was celebrating her birthday. At this time, it doesn't appear to be that the suspect actually knew there was a birthday party going on here on Saturday night, but when he did wander into the complex, he found children celebrating a birthday party. Those victims, some of them in serious condition still this morning. One victim was actually flown to Salt Lake City. Very, very tragic, tough events to deal with here on Saturday night. But yesterday, I was here throughout the day, still here this morning, and we saw the community, dozens and dozens of members of our community out here bringing flowers, words of encouragement, posters, toys. And the tragedy on Saturday night, it's tough to deal with for anyone, but to see the community come out in such numbers yesterday, and they're also expected to be here today to support the community here at the Wiley Street Station Apartments. It does show that anytime there is evil in this community, the community does respond. We are expecting to learn a little bit more about the suspect later on today. He is scheduled to appear in Ada County Court at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. He is charged with a total of 15 felonies, 9 counts of aggravated battery, 6 counts of injury to a child. Police say at this point, although refugees were involved in the attack, it does not believe that this was a hate crime. They were not really the idea of the attack, attacking refugees. They just happened to be here at the complex. And again, the suspect, Timmy Earl Kinner, a 30-year-old from Los Angeles, we're told by Boise police that he doesn't have a criminal record here in the state of Idaho, but they did learn through some investigation that he does have an extensive criminal record that does span across multiple states. Chief of Police telling us yesterday, Phil Bones, that some of the things he has done in the past could be qualified as very violent crimes. Kevin, we are going to learn a little bit more here this afternoon about the suspect, but the community here this morning still recovering after a brutal attack on Saturday night.
And Joe, of course, everybody's getting together for the vigil tonight at City Hall at 6 o'clock. I know you'll be covering this throughout the day on Channel 7 and KTVB.com. Your reports are always great. Anything else you can add?
And, again, I can't reiterate that anytime there's a tragedy in Boise, it's incredible to see the response. And you can say that anytime there's going to be a terrible event like this, people are going to respond. But, Kevin, the people I saw here yesterday, young kids, families, people here just on their own, bringing gifts, bringing food, bringing resources to this community that was just shattered. You can't undo the horror of Saturday night, but to see the people that were out here all day yesterday, since early on into late into the evening, and today I know at 10 o'clock this morning there'll be some elementary school students that will be out here again showing their support. And I know it means a lot to this refugee community. They come to the United States looking for a place to escape the horrors of where they lived, and to be here and have to face that again is terrible. Nothing can undo that. But again, Kevin, the support we see here from the community, and it's not just the Treasure Valley community. I met people that drove from all over Idaho just to bring some flowers and show some support. It just shows that we do have a really caring community.
Joe, as always, the Emmy Award winner, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Our great friend, Joe Paris, joining us from Channel 7, outstanding young reporter. And you heard Tanya J. Powers with the report. You heard others. We'll get your calls now at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Cindy and Caldwell, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, Kevin, on this very somber day, thank you for using, which you have, the wisdom, the sensitivity to report this tragedy. And I would just like to say I am so grateful. We had 6 police on Saturday night leaving Our Lady of Valley, their cars around a, quote, suspect at a local gas station that obviously I did not choose to turn into. But, you know, the horror of this also, Kevin, on top of everything else, is that, you know, it's time to speak, and I'm just going to have to say, like you, I decry identity politics. But even on Saturday's paper, when you're juxtaposing people of parties, you know, we all, I would hope, have the greatest sensitivity and care about children, and in the right way, not the heiress way love, but in the right way love children. So, of course. But you know what? On the other hand, you know, I'm going to speak very clearly. People do not understand that there is things and classifications of things like moral imbecile. We have liberal judges, lawyers. There is a rampant escalation, and that's just a fact of violence. You know, when we have done away with, it is not humane not to have people who are criminal. It's called a moral imbecile. On the lawns of Newtown, the state hospitals, there were many people. There was a whole building I worked next to that had the criminally insane. Instead of thinking with this somehow we shouldn't be vetting people who could harm this country, nor should we be keeping people incarcerated, that people that have come to the point that they are not able to live productively in society and may impulsively respond in any given moment to, and I'm going to say, pure evil. I'm not going to go into that whole thing with Satan and demons, et cetera, but that's exactly what can happen. So, you know, our people in the Congress, our people who are so concerned about bondages for schools, you need mental institutions, and realize, people, there are out there that they shouldn't be coming and getting a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
This is just what happens, Kevin. So thank you for being sensitive to this, and I thank you that we do have in Idaho, Second Amendment rights that are strong. Second Amendment rights that allow us to try to protect ourselves. So in this time of tragedy, but yet in a time where we do have a nation that we'll be celebrating on Wednesday, that we are given the rights to try to protect us and to protect those children. So thank you, Kevin, for being out there. People, get on board with your mental health hospitals. It is not loving not to think that some people need to be even protected from their own evilness. I think you could have traveled with me into mental institutions and drug units when people were totally unable of having the lack of impulse control and could act out in any minute in frenzy. So thank God for our police, Kevin. Thank God for you always supporting and being on the right side of America.
God bless, Cindy. Thank you.
God bless you, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hank in Boise, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning. this person who did the attack is psychotically out of control. And if there had been adults there when he entered it, they would have been stabbed. It just happened to be the kids. What turned my stomach, and what I saw on Channel 7 with Mayor Beater, who turned my stomach, and the news report, they tried to turn this into an attack on the refugees. This man was enraged because he got kicked out of the apartments, and he took out his rage with a knife. And he had a history of this, and he shouldn't have been released in the first place. But you have the usual suspects, Sherry Buckner Webb, and the usual Democrat establishment, and turning this into somehow implying that this is an attack because these people were refugees, and it had nothing to do with that. And it's the old saying of trying to turn an incident into a political advantage, and that's what makes me turn my stomach at Mayor Beater in the sight of him. He's disgusting. And
as I said, if it were, with all due respect to the sensitivity of the nature, this is an African American, a black guy from L.A. who had a history of criminal violence, not a white guy with conservative ties from Pocatello. And
the Channel 7 the mayor tried to turn this into an attack on.
If I could that's what the media would like. They didn't get that in this case, and you even hear it to your point that if you're saying, "Look, America is for Americans," that's not anti-refugee. That's being pro-America. And we see, as you heard from Joe Paris, you have people coming from all over saying these people are welcome. So. You are correct about Mayor Beater and trying to make this anti-refugee. That's not the case here.
Yeah, and that's what he's done. And they should have this amendment for this nonpartisan stuff on local elections. They should make this partisan. And we did have that up until the 1930s in Idaho, including the state Supreme Court. Mayor Beater is not it's a very partisan Democrat, Chicago-style operation in the sense of permanent machine-like politics, which he really represents. And I think that we should have truth in advertising in terms of who these people are. And I think that the Boise City mayor should be a partisan office so that people are ill-informed of just who Mayor Beater is.
Great call, Hank. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And fast first hour here, more of your phone calls on the stabbing. How welcoming is the Treasure Valley at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Plus, why we need to support law enforcement now more than ever. First, traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio.
Is it recovered?
Oh, you're just full of good news, Larry. Hey, Tom, if you want to call back at 7:35, we'll be taking calls about the shooting again. Coming up next, our great friend Dave Petzo. And, yes, it's one of the slower weeks of the year. But the news is hot and heavy this morning, as it is seemingly every morning, when you have the 9 kids who were stabbed. In addition to that, you have this situation involving a Meridian police officer who was shot. How safe do you feel in the Treasure Valley? And what are we going to do to keep our valley safe? That's where you come in with me next. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. We like to call it KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News Now. Good morning.